Hey everybody, welcome back to Alumni Game. Me and Buster here this week to go ahead and break down the LSU game from last week. Was not a win, but we're still feeling better about the way this squad is popping. Not a proper intro here. Michael Ritchie, class of '06. Buster Clarkson, John Buster Clarkson, class of '02. Back here with you. Sam's off this week. He'll be back with us next week. He's still rocking in the editing room for us to get these episodes up. Subscribe if you like what we're doing here. Let us know what else you want to see. I know we're just doing a lot of games lately, but it's a busy time of year. We are hoping to get some Gamecocks of the week back up for you guys. If there's a particular player you want to see, let us know. I think we kind of have one pegged, maybe in the running back room, so we're going to check that out. And there's some other players emerging, so I'll just toss that out there. LSU recap, we'll get into that. Also, Oklahoma coming up next. But in the meantime, some news coming out of Carolina, making some changes on the coaching staff with some of our assistants, and we'll get into that. Might be a good time. We're making some changes too. We're keeping a little more casual this week. We realize these aren't the most fun when the squad isn't winning, but we think that's going to change. This has the makings of a little bit of an ugly kind of trap game before Oklahoma gets into their big swing of things. And we're knocking at the door. We're coming very close, so we feel good about that. We're trying to bring some hype this week for Carolina. Buster's birthday this weekend, so hoping for a birthday dub on Saturday would be great. But let's get into it, Buster. This LSU recap. Gamecocks lose 20-10. The main theme is kind of frustrated but staying focused, and kind of why some changes were made. Right? Let's talk about those changes. Let's talk about what we did wrong and right this past weekend.
Well, I mean, thank God we don't do this podcast on Sunday. And it would be a completely different tone. I would be behaving a lot differently if we were doing this on Sunday. But luckily for us, we do this later in the week, and that allows us to have Monday. So back when I was playing, and a lot of our listeners, if you've played football or if you've played a sport, and after a tough loss, you are allowed to be frustrated, mad, and kind of wallow in your own self-misery right after that loss. But coaches always tell us that after that little mourning period or that grieving period, you wash it off.
You put it away.
Turn the page, you put it away, tuck it back in. It's a new week. It's a new game plan. It's a new focus. Thank God for that, because Monday, I flushed that loss down the toilet, and we are here for game week against Oklahoma. But to recap, the biggest frustration that any Gamecock fan, it doesn't have to be me on this podcast. You could have any other Gamecock fan on this podcast, and we're going to say the same thing. The false starts, the penalties, the shoot yourself in the foot problems and mistakes that we had is what cost us the game. Because if you noticed, we did have a run game. We had Matthew Fuller break off a 72-yard run. We finally got to see him get some play time, and could be a Gamecock of the week based on what we've seen.
Yeah,
and he looked good out there. When he hit that hole, he was decisive. One cut, put his foot in the ground, exploded. And I didn't realize he had that kind of top end speed. So I saw him break out, and I was like, all right, we're going to have a chunk play here.
I had heard about it.
He kept breaking out.
Yep, I had heard about it, and that's why I said last week. I mean, I did say last week. I'm pretty sure I said Fuller 100 yards. Now he didn't quite get there, but I think that one run showed you we got to give him the ball. We got to He's not like look. Lenoris is the focus of the offense. That's the way it's going to be this year, pending something nuts. But we knew we needed a shakeup in there. Faison is either taking a while to do this, or the O-line is just not helping people out, and you needed someone with a little more chutzpah, a little more, I don't know, motivation to like get out there and do something regardless of what's happening on the squad. And I mean, Fuller did that, right? He was a great bright spot. Like, wow, we have something we didn't know we had. And I feel like that we're going to see, I'm hoping we're going to see a lot more of that this week.
Well, we should be able to see it, because here's the problem. Fuller He was seven carries, 83 yards. That's an average of 11.9 yards.
Oof,
We didn't
that's
see him in
nice.
the second half outside of one or two carries. And Beamer even addressed this at the post game that he went to his coaches at halftime. He's like, "Where's Matt Fuller?" You saw what he was able to do in the first half.
Right. Well,
Now,
what are you
granted,
doing?
Rasul did play well, in the second half. He had 13 carries, 68 yards, 5.2 average. So very respectable. Anything that is 5 yards and above for a running back on an average carry, you're looking at a really solid performance. So,
Sure.
between those two guys, Lenore's had a few yards in there and kind of sprinkled through the rest of the offense. But,
Yeah, he ran a
for
lot.
us, it's South Carolina rushed 45 times for 193 yards, almost 200 yards rushing
Yeah, it's nice.
for a 4.3 average. So that's a really good stat to have
Especially against
overall from,
LSU.
and against a very good LSU defense. So that shows promise. Now, what happened? Why did we lose 20-10? Well, we can talk about, and if I was on maybe the mothership and could have a big screen back here and have highlights going across, I would show you that there were three legitimate drives in this game where that running attack was able to put us in a position to be inside the LSU 30. And we came, and I think it was in totality, we were in the LSU 30, so not necessarily red zone. They call it the plus side of the field when you cross the 50, and then kind of what I call the danger zone, which is 30 and in. We
Yeah.
were in the 30 and in danger zone, I think, 6 to 7 times and came away with 3 points.
Yeah. That's
Why
not
did
good.
that happen?
That's not good.
Well, what happens is on first down, our offensive coordinator would try to, and I get taking a shot every now and again, but it felt like every single first down we got, once we got into that danger zone, he was trying to take a shot downfield. And again, Vandrevius Jacobs has played well throughout the season, has been a great vertical threat, deep threat, but he's matched up to a corner that most likely will be a top pick in the draft. I'm blanking on his name. Obviously, listeners, put it down in the comments. I can't remember his name. He was the guy that stopped the 4th and 4 when we were trying to throw a little out route to Van Dreves to keep a drive going. He's really good.
Yeah, he basically
He
blanketed
blanketed.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, he basically blanketed him. And so when you do that, then you go to a 2nd and 10. Okay, 2nd and 10 is not bad. You can call up a play that can get you to a 3rd and 5,
Sure.
a third short, or even maybe a little chunk play to get a quick first down. But no, what would happen is a false start. We had a total of, and I remember texting to my brother and a couple of friends in the first half of the 8 penalties, 6 of them were false starts.
Yeah. Terrible.
2 of those were by the same player, Josiah Thompson, our supposedly 5-star left tackle. And so then you had some false starts where the center wasn't snapping the ball at the right cadence. Just like, and these are frustrating because one, they're procedural penalties. 2, these are penalties that should be avoided if you have some level of experience and veteranship on your offensive line. So why are we making these mistakes? You can't blame the crowd noise because we practice all week for the LSU at night in Death Valley crowd noise. So you go to a silent count. You practice a silent count. You practice those sorts of things. Why
Sure.
were we screwing that up? Because of those screw ups, we went from a 2nd and 10 to a 2nd and 15. Well,
Yeah.
2nd and 15, you're going to have to pass. So what happens is then Lenore's has to do a drop back. Well, LSU has a great pass rush, and they were able to get to him. He had 2 intentional grounding calls where they were
Yep.
bad. They were mistakes by him, but he was put in a bad spot because of the false starts from the play before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you're playing at and I think the entire night we were playing at a 3rd down average of over 9 yards.
Yeah,
That is
we
ridiculous.
were 6 of 16 from on 3rd down as well. So
Yeah.
not even 50%. And then on 4th down, even worse, 0 for 2, obviously needing to go for it a couple of times. That makes sense.
Yeah.
We technically won the turnover battle, but it didn't really feel like it. I mean, Lenore's threw a pick. We did lose a fumble. They threw 2 picks, but so it was almost a wash. I mean, we had a little more than them, and technically we had the ball a few minutes longer than they did. They
Yeah.
just did a little bit more with it. They capitalized, and they didn't make as many mistakes. They were 5 for 54 with penalties. We were 13 for 65. Now, that isn't the worst 65 yards, but 13 and where they were placed, like you said, always getting us to longer second downs,
Well,
longer
yeah,
first
you
downs.
always look
And
at
just a
like,
buzzkill. Like, dude, you're not supposed to be doing that. And
well, that's
nobody
the thing
trusting
is
each other.
if you look at the yardage of penalties, they had a similar amount of yardage, like you said, but then you look at that number, and what that tells you is the penalties we were getting. Yes, they were only a little 5 yarders, which technically, if they were not procedural penalties, it wouldn't be a problem. But because the nature of the penalty, it kills drives. Because
Yeah.
defense did well. Dylan had two sacks on the was it or no, he had two tackles for loss. Technically, one of them could have been considered a tackle or a sack.
Yeah.
So even though we didn't get sacks, the four tackles for loss, and you saw him in the backfield making plays. I mean, like you said, we had the three turnovers that
Yep.
and then that was it two interceptions, and then there was it a fumble?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, the
Yeah,
goal
neither
line
team
fumble.
really held on to the ball in a great way.
Yeah, so and granted, Garrett Nussmeier did play one of his better games. He did struggle early in the year.
They
Some
did
people
talk
attributed,
about him maybe being hurt, though. We definitely hit on something last week when we were
yeah,
talking about
he
that.
was definitely, and for whatever reason, either he wasn't as hurt as much as people were talking about, or he miraculously got healed. So, whatever the case may be,
Yeah, and they
the
kept
fact of
him
the matter
clean.
is,
Yeah.
if you look at the idea that both defenses played well and both offenses played meh, then the deciding factor was purely our shoot ourselves in the foot
Yeah.
penalties
Yeah, and they
that killed
didn't.
our drives.
Yeah, and they didn't. Yeah.
So,
So I mean, I'm
looking,
down with that. I feel like, look, I don't want to harp on the defense too well. I mean, I don't want to leave out a positive. Defense played well, kept them alive. Strong showing from Brian Thomas in the front seven. But yes, the offense in general, penalties, miscommunications, poor protection, I think, and specifically O line, which is going to lead us to our big next hit here and sort of big news on the week. Coaching shakeup. So Lonnie Teasley fired as O-line coach at South Carolina. Unfortunate for him, but it did feel like something needed to happen. That was
was
definitely a
necessary.
glaring thing in this game and somewhat in previous games. I liked that they did it where they did, and their focus wasn't on Shula, and because I thought, like we said, that he's getting Fuller involved. Van Drevius was covered very well. Nothing you could do about that with a possible future Pro Bowl corner on him. That's going to happen. And they took out your number one. Okay. But yeah, the protection and the penalties, those feel like coaching. Those feel like
Yeah.
things that can be fixed.
Well, you look at the ideas that if we had a strong rushing attack, then you could say, hey, blocking the point of attack for blocking was good, and then you recognize that that's because of the talent that is there. Trovon Bow, Tree Babalade played well. I
Babalade.
saw Nick Sharp in there. He was the one that I think I shared it with you guys at the beginning of the season. There was a snapshot from fall practice where he had thighs that were like built like redwood tree trunks. I mean, he's just a massive guy. He played very well when he got in there.
Was he the one with the hit early? There was an early play where we got in the backfield and got the running back that looked a tiny bit
Sharp,
like the Clowney, Michigan hit from way back.
No, Nick Sharp is offensive line.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I was thinking
Dylan
more
Stewart,
about what the
Dylan
defense
Stewart
did well.
Dylan Stewart got in there and did get a TFL that looked
that was
very
fun.
Clowney-esque. But O-line blocking was not, point of attack blocking was not the problem. The problem is procedural penalties, fundamentals, and that goes to the O-line coach.
Yep.
And the fact that this has been a pattern of behavior from game one to now says that whatever the coach is doing to get his guys prepared for a game during the week is not working. And when you have a pattern of that does stretch back to last year, then you have to put this on the coach. So I think Shane made the right call. And whatever, this is purely based on objectively on Coach Teasley.
Reasonable, fair.
He was just not getting
unbiased.
the job done for game prep and not getting the job done over a period of time. So body of work. He was let go. We have Shawn Elliott, former O-line coach under Spurrier.
Elliott.
He's from Camden originally, obviously made a name for himself at App State as a player and a coach. Came with us with Spurrier, after Spurrier was fired. He was interim for a little bit. He ended up taking the job at Georgia State when we hired Muschamp.
Over in Atlanta.
He was
Yep.
able, yep. So then last year, before the beginning of last year, we hired him back on as a tight ends coach. I was really glad to have him back. I think his personality fits what Shane wants for the culture of the South Carolina football
Yeah.
program. So I like him back.
Passion, physical, intense. Yeah.
And by the way, if we were, that's great. But one of the great things about him is his run game, his rushing offense that he has designed, that he employed at Georgia State, and then obviously when he was here with Spurrier and Marcus Lattimore and Mike Davis and those guys worked very well. So having him be able to go back to the O line and maybe have a little bit more influence on the
Yep.
rushing attack, I think is going to pay dividends. Now,
Yeah. Could pay dividends this
disclaimer.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the biggest disclaimer. People automatically are going to assume that now that Teasley's gone and Shawn's back, this is going to be a 180 difference. Like we're going to be the
Yeah.
best team
No,
there.
it's
And
going to
our
take
offense.
time.
No,
Yeah.
you cannot fix an offense overnight, and you cannot instill a brand new blocking scheme overnight or within a week. What you can do is take what you have and add your influence and try to, as efficiently as possible, streamline what we're already doing with the things that you do well.
Yeah.
And you will see a small amount of result this weekend, and then next weekend a little bit more of a result. And you gradually you'll see an improvement. And
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and
happen.
hope for a little bit more this week because of the challenge ahead of us, and I'm going to think that this is going to fire guys up. Like for the guys on the O line where coach wasn't getting it done, they get a fresh start here. Elliott bringing his intensity. He knows he has a challenge this week. I mean, I'm not going to say that. Yeah, it's a full blown key to victory, but I expect some change. Yeah, I expect it to be positive.
The biggest thing is if we could do what we did in the running game last week and have that kind of blocking intensity, all I'm asking is cut the false starts in half.
Yeah.
And maybe add in and I'm not even saying max protect, but have the running back understand where to pick up the blitz, or have that running back anticipate where the blitz is coming from, or a chip block here and there from a tight end. Something to give Lenoris that little bit extra time where he does not feel. Because if you watch the game and when he is in a pro style under center drop back, so this is kind of West Coast rhythmic dropbacks, 3, 5, 7 step dropbacks. You are not dropping back to survey the field and do what Lenoris does best and improv and make plays happen. You're throwing on rhythm. You're throwing within a defined play in a defined space in a defined amount of time. If you're doing that, you are relying on your O line to give you that 3.5 seconds and giving you a perfect umbrella of a blocking front so that and with seams that you can see the field where your receivers are supposed to be. Improve on that from the pass pro viewpoint. Cut down on the penalties and continue to what you did this past week in the running attack, and you will see an improvement on offense.
I'm with you, Buster. Big thumbs up. I approve. And I think that leads us right into, now that we've cleaned up LSU and coaching change, we're into Oklahoma here. And starting to get into some of our, keys to victory here. So let's set the stage. We got number 14 Oklahoma at Williams-Brice this week. We're playing a little early, 12:45, mid-afternoon. Nice, should be nice. Spread has Oklahoma 5.5, which is interesting. This is within a touchdown. That's a game that we can, you never know. And over-under is 43.5, so it's pretty similar to our other games. Look for something, in the 20s or a little less. I will give our predictions at the end, and I actually have Sam's that I like, so I'll mention that later. The model from ESPN gives Oklahoma a 68% chance of winning. Again, I kind of like those odds, 30-40% has us in it.
Yep.
You got to change an O-line. You can make an improvement there. You had a big game with a big team. You have another one this weekend. It's this almost the same as last week. It just feels like it's going to be a little dirtier, and it's at home. This all feels kind of like a situation we like, Also, a kind of great note that Sam threw in for us here. Oklahoma's brutal stats stretch of games, SEC games, starts next week. So they might be
Yeah.
overlooking us a little bit in a great
Yeah.
way for us to capitalize. And I love that. And I also love Sam contributing to the show from afar and giving me notes that I wouldn't have is amazing. So
I
let's
can
get
feel
into.
Sam's presence.
I know it's omnipresent. He's around.
Yeah.
He's doing our thing. And he'll be back with us next week too. As you see his pretty face. But some keys here. Get physical early, protect the quarterback, trenches. All the stuff we've been talking about with the O line. Defense will hopefully continue. But what do you think about this Oklahoma team? Where can we gash them? Where can we, get some wins in different position groups here versus Oklahoma to try to pile it up into another upset, maybe?
Well, so this is honestly very similar to the LSU game this past week. Oklahoma is known for their defense. They had an elite defense last year. Brent Venables, as much as I hate him, Skeletor from Clemson, as I like to call him,
Yeah.
he does put together a great defense that is fast, physical, and aggressive, much like what we saw Blake Baker's defense from LSU. They were very aggressive to the ball. I see Oklahoma doing the exact same thing. Now, the biggest issue with Oklahoma last year, they did not have an offense. They did not have a quarterback. This year, they do have a quarterback in John Mateer. He has looked great the first few weeks, but he did get hurt. Obviously, he's back from that injury. And I don't know, and obviously, no one will ever actually know outside the Oklahoma locker room, what is his percentage back from that injury? Is he operating at 80%, 90%? Is he fully back 100%? Are they hiding a vulnerability in his game because of the injury? I don't really know. We're not going to know until we actually step on the field Saturday and see how we attack. The biggest thing,
potential for an in-game setback too, if we can get to it. Yeah.
Well, I like what you said with Oklahoma's, because like we said, we're in October. We have a gauntlet that we're going through, starting with LSU, Oklahoma this week, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Oklahoma's gauntlet starts next week, and like you said, how much are they focusing on that gauntlet? Right. Because they still have playoff aspirations in such a way, even after that brutal loss against Texas this past week, they are still in line with the potential to be a top-tier SEC team with the aspirations.
Yeah, they might not think a lot about a team that doesn't have a lot of SEC wins, that has been competitive, but doesn't seem to be a threat in terms of that.
Yeah. Now, granted, any coach and every football player and anybody that has experience in football says, no, we're not overlooking any game.
Yeah, everybody will say that.
We know the reality. So there is a chance, not necessarily for a slip up, but to take advantage of an offense that did not look good last week. So, for us, like the idea is watch the Texas film from last week, Clayton White, watch that film and mirror exactly what Texas did defensively against Oklahoma and see if we can do that this week.
Yeah, mirror
not
Texas,
necessarily the key. It kind of ties into key one, which is win the trenches. Thank you, Sam. That was amazing. I love your keys, Sam.
Love a good trench.
On top of it. So key one, trenches. Defensively, we have played very well on the D-line. Dylan Stewart, obviously. JT Gear and Brian Thomas on the other end have looked good. Monkel Goodwine, Nick Barrett, and Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy have looked good on the interior.
So Brownlow's name a few times. Yep.
Win that side of the trench. And then on the offensive trench, the biggest key, I think, the
key of keys,
the master key that opens all the locks and doors.
That's one. The one that's huge floating around.
Yeah. That key is minimize the mistakes on the offensive line, right? So cut down on false starts, cut down on the communication problems, figure out your rhythm and relationship between the center and the quarterback. And from there, do exactly what you did in the running game this past week.
Yeah. And on the defensive side too. Yeah. Like just do what you did last week. Yeah. I feel like if that happens, if they don't have penalties to kill the vibe, if they come up with big defensive plays, there'll be some special teams plays too. We know Beamer ball. That keeps the crowd rocking even in an ugly game. And that's another huge piece of momentum. If defensively they can get it going early, a sack, a hit, a turnover, anything disruptive, that crowd will erupt over that. if they can give
Yeah.
the offense the ball and the offense can score off of that, yeah, look, even if it's a field goal or something to start, just get ahead, just get something on the board. That's fine. But that crowd will stay up from that. And I think that will carry us a long way. I mean,
Oh
obviously,
yeah.
there'll be big adjustments at halftime from both teams, no matter what happens. But I would just say to the fan base in general, and this one comes direct from Sam as well, and I'll echo this in the pick at the end, but do not get frustrated if it's an ugly game. If it's ugly and we win, who cares if it's ugly,
Exactly.
right?
At this
And
point,
and
a dub is a
and if
dub.
it is ugly, but we're not giving up points, then who cares? Because that was the kind of the way with LSU. Turnover here, turnover there. It's ugly early, but you know what? We're in this. Okay, I don't care. I don't mind. Now just keep moving forward. Don't look back, right?
Yeah.
Definitely don't look back in anger. But we talked a little bit about the turnover battle, about defense already, creating opportunities. Their QB, John Mateer. You talked about he might be injured, he might not. He hasn't really faced this kind of environment on the road with this injury. So I do feel like focusing on him, like you said, getting aggressive early, getting to him is a big deal. But also, don't give up the big play early. Obviously, they want to move between the 20s. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and that's the thing is, if you look at last week, I mean, we were beating the shit out of Garrett Nussmeyer. And, there was so many times
yeah,
where he was getting up and limping. Now, granted, he was able to make a play right after, but I think that was more because he was at Death Valley at night and had a little bit of moxie and
yeah,
home field advantage. And then the fact that, and I cannot stress this enough, I will say it again, and I've said it several times already on this episode, that if we had cut down, and it's not even cutting down on false starts, if we, three of these drives that we had to that danger zone inside the 30, if we did not have a false start in that drive, I am very, very positive that we would have been able to score, whether a
and
field
even if
goal
they were
or a
all field
touchdown.
goles, it still would have been 2019, and then you're 1 point in it, and anything can happen. A
Yeah,
safety can win it at that point,
I mean, heck,
So
I mean, like with what 3 minutes left, we were down in the danger zone again, and if we would have scored, it would have been 17-17 tie ball game with our defense being able to have a chance to stop them.
yeah,
Instead, we take a 4th and 4 to a out route to Vandrevious Jacobs with the best corner in the game covering him. It was an incomplete pass. It was not a great call, but such as such. So then that goes to us. If we're at a home field environment and Mateer is on the road and he's facing against this defense, and we can minimize those mistakes on offense, he may not have the chances that Garrett Nussmeyer
yeah.
had
Then you start rocking out with your
down
caca.
last
You
week.
know what I mean? Like then you
Exactly.
really start to have it. Look, I think we've covered a lot of that. I think you made great points. I mean, I just I need to see it. I need to see them fixing that stuff. And I feel like with the change on the O line, I think that changes that. I think defense keeps rocking. I think coach brings out a couple wrinkles out of the playbook that maybe haven't been there. But it does kind of feel like we're sitting at a crossroads here. It doesn't feel quite like the Kentucky game. That was like we kind of have to have that. We got to execute. We got to win. I'm not saying they have to win because they don't. But they do have to play well, and they got to fix some things, and that'll make me feel good enough about it to continue on. But I do think both teams are at a little bit of a point in their season where we could get them, we could catch them, and I kind of like that. So I just want to highlight this game for Carolina fans that even if you're starting to wane on the season and it's tougher than we thought, and like maybe you aren't as committed, like give them your all this weekend. If only it's the last one before we get into this crazy gauntlet that it might not be possible. But if they can do those things, fixing mistakes, the other pieces are good and they'll be in it, and we'll be glued to this game into the fourth quarter. I feel like that's all you can really ask right now out of this team,
Yeah. Well,
as long as they stay in it.
and that's the thing is, if you look at keys 1, 2, and 3, and key 1 is obviously win the trenches. Key
Yep.
2 is get excited at Williams-Brice, and I think we will. And I know that we are at a level of frustration because of what we've seen the first half of this season, and we're
Yeah, I
sitting
mean,
at
when you're
three and
firing a
three and
position
stuff like
coach,
that.
you're at a
Yeah,
certain point, right?
but I think that knowing that the one of the primary issues of our failures has been a lack of O line play, and the fans wanted to say, "Hey, we need to make a change." So now Shane did make that change, almost like he was listening to us.
Yep.
He gets us. So in a sense, then when you go out to the game as a fan and you're in the Williams Rice cheering, you're a little amped because you're like, okay, we made the change.
Yeah,
We're about to turn the
we got
corner.
some juice.
And here's the biggest key that I think is really going
Biggest
to get
key.
the fans involved. As far as here's the master key for key two. We were 3-3 last year. We were struggling. We came off that Alabama one. We're like, oh man, we're not what's going on. And also, we went on that run to the point where we were a potential playoff team, and Lenoris became the Heisman, and everything kind of fit into place. Well, you know what? We're 3-3 coming off a bad loss that we should have won if we had not shot ourselves in the foot,
Yep.
kind of like what we did last year. And we made a change. And I'm pretty sure that coach and the players and the entire football program this week at practice behind closed doors that we don't know about, they're like, guys, this is put up or shut up time. So get engaged, get fired up. This is our chance for redemption. This is
Yeah.
the same thing that we went through last year. That's master key for key number two. That's how you get excited. That's how you make Williams Price a credible environment to scare the living crap out of John Mateer and the Oklahoma Sooners.
I love it. Look, Buster, we said we keep it short and sweet. We're running out of time here.
Yeah.
I'm going to go right to picks, and I like what my brother Sam is saying. He's saying 19-15, Carolina, gonna win ugly. It's not going to be pretty. Stay in it, even if it's ugly. I like that. I want to go with that. I kind of don't mind winning ugly at all. What do you got for me?
I'm the same way. So I'm going to tell all of our listeners, listen to everything that I said in this podcast.
Everything. Listen to it all.
Because that
the
is
keys, the
important.
master keys.
Those are all the things that are going to allow us to come into this game and come out 17-14 with a dub.
Nice.
Show everybody that we mean business, and it's October. And here's my bold prediction: that run game you saw last week, it's going to happen again this week. Matthew Fuller and I like if Matthew Fuller is kind of not necessarily primary, but kind of takes on that kind of role. But
becomes the bell cow. Yeah.
If it is a shared experience between Fuller and Rasul Faison, because Rasul did run well last week as well.
Yep.
If it's a shared collaboration of rushing attack for them, I'm going to go with, again, 200 yards rushing.
Wow, 200 yards.
All
right,
prediction.
We're really down to it here, Buster. We're down to the last few seconds here. You heard it here first, 200 yards. We both got Carolina winning. And like, subscribe if you like what you're hearing. Let us know what else you want to hear. And that's another episode of Alumni!
Yay!
Gamecocks!